Well, talking about people at the very top, I have another such person with me in studio today. And it makes me stop and think what it is about us as humans and about our human spirit that makes some of us want to go further and run faster and dive deeper, or in this case, climb higher than anyone else has done, even when it is something that requires huge personal sacrifice and comes at great personal risk. Because my guest with me in studio right now is someone who has faced that decision and tackled that challenge numerous times. Her name is Deshan Dessel. She is a mountaineer, and I think a name that most of you will recognize. We've chatted several times over the phone over the years, Deshan, but it's lovely to have you here in studio. Welcome.
It's amazing to be here, and thanks for the opportunity, Pippa.
So great to meet you. We're hoping another one of the team members will be able to join us in the next 5 or 10 minutes. The traffic is being difficult today, shall we say, but fingers crossed. Deshan is part of a 4-member all-female climbing team going to tackle the summit of Mount Everest later this year, and they happen to be in Cape Town today to receive some of their specialist kit for the expedition. So we grabbed the opportunity to get her into studio. There is, I know, a limited window for Everest expeditions. It's always round about the same time of the year in April, May. We hear about this. Is that when you're going to give it a bash?
Yeah, just before I answer that question, I just want to give a big shout out to K-Way, which is really the reason we're here. Yeah. K-Way is sponsoring the summit kit, which is your down suits, which are very specialized and made around each of our physical structures. So it's not a standardized suit you can get off the rack, and they've been generous. Speaking of generosity, they've been generous enough to make sure that the team will be nice and warm and protected in the high parts of Everest.
Fantastic. So. Well done, K-Day. Thanks for supporting you.
So to answer your question, the whole point of having this expedition is to make a point about women and women in mountaineering, and part of our mission is to highlight the experiences that women in business go through as well, because 2 of us are entrepreneurs, and Lisa is a business coach herself, so we have that sort of very hands-on experience with female entrepreneurs in that particular journey. So this is kind of like a dual thing where it's obviously a personal goal for each of the team members. For me, it's unfinished business. We all go for our own reasons. But as an entrepreneur myself, I also understand that being a female entrepreneur it's a bit like climbing Everest.
Hopefully not every single day, but I get your point. I mean, and it really is that sort of that theme of inspiration and setting your goals and the preparation that goes into achieving those goals. There's so many parallels in the process of reaching the top of the mountain that can apply to the business world.
Absolutely, yeah. So they're the highs and lows, and I don't know if you've seen on Facebook, there's a meme that goes around what it's like to be a small business, and 1 minute you're like, hey, I got this, and the next minute you're like, oh, I'm going to die. So it's like, it's the same kind of trajectory in business as well, and we really want to bring some kind of people's understanding. Look, small business is hard enough as it is, but if you're a woman in small business, it's not an easy journey. You're probably a mom, you're probably a breadwinner, you're probably looking after other people, and you're trying to make a business successful. There's a lot of that goes into it.
It does require a physical challenge at parts of the motherhood journey, certainly, but not to the degree that putting yourself against the highest mountain in the world requires. You used the term unfinished business. Deshan, I think most of our listeners will, if they think back, remember your name associated with the very first South African expedition back in 96. You made it to Camp 2. You went back in 2003. You had to take that agonizing decision to turn back 500 meters from the summit.
It's an awful decision.
It's a decision you have to make.
But it preserved my life, and I'm still here.
Exactly. It is. It must be excruciating. Every time I hear that phrase, turned back a few hundred meters from the summit, you just think, you can't imagine what must go through your head. Well, actually talk to us about what goes through your head, because you've worked so hard to get so close.
Yeah.
And you can't have it. What's going through your mind?
To clarify, it was 550 vertical meters from the summit. So it would have taken me another 10, maybe 12 hours to reach that point.
Okay.
But in the moment that the decision is being made, it's the best decision you can make for then. But afterwards, it's afterwards when you start doubting, did I do the right thing? And if I just went a little bit further, and just grappling with that idea of I was so close, why couldn't I just push through? But actually with the weather, I mean, if hundreds of other people turn around at the same time, then it's not just you, it's everyone else beating themselves up for not making it. And so the whole thing about the risk of climbing is that you've got to calculate the risk. And the calculation is always about returning back safely. So I always say to people, getting to the summit of a mountain is halfway. You've got a goal set up to, and you've got a goal set through that, and go, when I'm successful, it's going to be when I get home safely. And as a mum, that's even more important to me now than before I was a mum climbing these big mountains.
How old are your kids now?
My son Edward is 8, and he'll be 9 next month. My daughter is 6. She just turned 6 last October.
So what is it like explaining to them when you set off on an expedition like this? You've got to balance, they must be incredibly proud of their mom taking on this enormous task. I guess you have to balance the sense of risk and danger that goes with it in how you tell them about it.
Look, it's been a bit tough. I think initially they thought I'm just talking about it, and then they started seeing me train for it, and then we went on a couple of hikes and climbs, up Lion's Head and in other places. And the closer we got, the more they realized it's actually a serious thing. I mean, as small as they are, they could start noticing that there's a lot of attention and focus on my training. And I think I actually induced a little bit of anxiety into their little brains, because I don't know how they process what they think climbing is. And in fact, there is that sense of, oh my goodness, Mummy's going to be away for a while. And, I talk to them through it. But it's a hard thing to juggle, because I don't know how they're processing. So they might think of disaster. The one might think of adventure. The other one might think of, I'm going to be away, so I won't be there for them. So it's a tough one as a mum to kind of juggle their expectations and what they think is going to happen, and then my sense of confidence that I know what I'm doing.
It must be doubly difficult, given that, just in the past year, we've had stories of tragedy on Everest that have hit very close to home. Sarai Kamalo's expedition losing a member, as much as they celebrated her getting to the top and safely back.
Look,
it wasn't without great loss.
I really do understand that experience, because in 1996 we lost our team photographer, Bruce Herod, and it is that thing of, yes, we've managed to put the first South African on the top of Everest, and the flag got there for the first time, but we came back with the same sort of sense of remorse that we've lost one of our beloved team members, and that's the thing that just carried us for a long, long, long time. I spent years and years and years just dealing with the loss, with that loss. And so the mountains do that. There is obviously the risk to one's life in the mountains, but the more careful you are, the more you stick to the basics, the more you understand that every step you take needs to be a calculated step, the better control you have over some of the risk. You can't control all the risk, but there are definitely things that you can't be negligent with.
And there's so much planning that goes into getting you there with that safety in mind. I'm going to bring in a second voice at this point. I'm so delighted that the traffic made way to allow our second guest to join us. Tumi Mpahlele is the second member of this 4-member team tackling Everest later this year. Welcome to Cape Talk. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Pippa.
So Deshawn's been telling us about these interesting parallels between the process of being a small business owner and the challenges entrepreneurs face in their daily business life, and the challenge of climbing mountains. In your case, Tumi, it's more than just mountains. You're an extreme athlete in many other guises, marathons. I think it's 7 comrades completed.
8.
8 now. Okay, my goodness. Why Everest? Why mountains when much of your work has been done on flat surfaces or on the road?
Mountains are majestic. You only need to climb once, and they keep on calling. I'm only more appreciative of what I've got, when I'm on the mountains. You tend to have time to think, but you also have time to see what nature has to offer. But you also have time to actually get yourself out of the comfort zone. So your usual trappings are not there. You're not with your family. Some small mundane things become almost trouble. Things that you actually don't even think about when those kind of things happen in the mountain. They make you realize how much more there is to be thankful for.
It must be incredibly difficult. 4 of you, all busy women, families, businesses to manage. How are you managing the process of preparing for this? Are you having to train individually on your own time, or is there space for you to come together and train together as a team?
Yeah, that's really been the challenge, is that all of us are so busy. You know, we've got very busy lives. We're all from Joburg, and if you're in Cape Town and you wonder about Joburg, it's on steroids 10 times the pace of Cape Town. So there's definitely a lot of stuff to juggle, and we have tried to make time for the team to get together, but that's also been tough to just get diaries together.
Yeah.
But I think most of our focus has been to be on the individual training. We all know what to expect of our bodies and what the mountains expect. So it's been very much individual training, but every now and then there's been a bymekaar kom, you know, where the team does something together. In fact, just this past weekend, Tumi, Alda and Lisa were on a rock somewhere while I was somewhere else. I was in Durban or something like that. So
I should just mention who those names are. Lisa Gehring and Alda Waddle being the other 2 members of the expedition.
Correct,
To me, I mean, Deshan said an important phrase there, what to expect of our bodies. You in particular, I think, have a very frank sense of what you can expect from your body, because I understand you've grappled with several quite bad health issues in the past that you've had to overcome. How has that changed the way you look at your body and approach the way you put it through your endurance sports?
I'm much more grateful for what I have. You know, I used to worry about the fact that I had to plan, you know, to go out for a short run. It was a planned process almost. Right now it's not, but I appreciate that much, much more. But I also know that it can be taken away anytime. So every time I'm more careful about what I put my body through. And so it might look like this is not calculated, and you might think, but how do you decide to actually climb this? But that's exactly. So the more you have to take your body through, the more you know what it is capable of. But the more you almost have to be conscious of what you're actually trying to do.
Yeah.
So that you don't get back to the old, you know. So it's been amazing to be able to overcome some of the stuff that I've had to overcome, but more importantly, just the opportunity that I can still continue and do more is really big for me personally.
I know it takes it's a process. It's not just that you arrive, climb the mountain and leave again. It's a long acclimatization process. To me, when are you actually heading to Nepal?
On the 27th of March, if everything goes well. And we're spending a good few weeks there, and we hope that everything works out.
Okay. Somebody is asking, is it only about Everest? I mean, again, back to the unfinished business. Deshan, once you've done it, if you make it to the top of this time, is that going to be it, or is there a longer term project?
Mountains are, you know, I always ask mums this question, like, how many kids do you have? Because they kind of go, oh, why do you have to climb another mountain? And then I go, how many kids have you got? Couldn't you just stop with one? But it is a bit like that. For me, I've got an ambition to do the 7 summits, and Everest is one of them, and I've been on a couple of others. So it's just for me sort of like I'd love to do it. It's a personal goal, you know, and I've got a bit of time to do it. You know, if I'm too old or too cranky or too whatever, I've got, you know, the wherewithal and the energy, and hopefully the funds will come through to make that dream happen. And if I can make a difference in the process, then absolutely amazing.
How about you, Timmy? Also, yes, 7 summits in view?
Yes, 7 summits and more. There's plenty of mountains to climb, but if I could get through the 7 summits, it would be really fantastic. But and I hope that we can bring a lot more people in that process. You know, get more women to have some interest in this kind of sport. But yes, there will be more mountains.
And, you know, with partners like K-Way, I mean, we're obviously always looking for partnerships that can help us to create the right narrative around why we do what we do. And that's why we're so appreciative of groups like K-Way coming along and saying we'll help you on the step, or one of the steps on the way. But obviously financial partners are also highly because
it's an expensive business. It really is, between the permits and the logistics of getting there and being there so long, and the equipment, etc. Is there going to be a platform where members of the public can follow your summit attempt and track you online? Is there a Facebook page or a website?
Yes, there is a Facebook page, Everest 2020 SA. We also have a Twitter page, Everest 2020 SA as well. And we have an Instagram page, Everest 2020 SA. On top of that, we also have a GoFundMe page where we're still hoping to raise funds for the climb. It's also Everest 2020 SA, so it's GoFundMe. Everest 2020 SA.
Okay. So it's a little, it's only a matter of weeks now, in fact, before you head off. Final question. Somebody asking, interesting perspective. Is coronavirus something that you're having to start worrying about, or is it just not crossing your minds?
I actually gave it some thought because it's traveling towards the east, and, Nepal is a neighboring country to China. And yes, I mean, of course, that's something that one has to think about. I'm not sure to what extent factor in at this point. I'm watching it closely, just to see to what extent Nepal also raises the issue over there. South Africa doesn't have any cases that I've seen so far reported.
Correct.
So, it is that's part of the risk. We've made the plans, the mountains there, our timelines there, tickets have been booked. So it's like I'm not one to panic about things like that, not easily. And I think the closer we get to the time to depart, the more informed our decision will be.
Yes.
For now, I guess it's a case of focusing on the things you can control: your preparation,
Absolutely.
your planning, your equipment and gear, making sure your body's in peak condition when you get there. And for the rest, you take your chances, as you've learned several times before. I hope that this is the one. I hope that the unfinished business is finished and dealt with, and I look forward to speaking to you on the other end. Both of you, our very best wishes go with you and the rest of the team.
Thank you so much.
And look forward to following the adventure on Everest 2020 SA. You've been listening to Deshan Desel and Tumi Mpatlele, part of the Everest 2020 SA team.